The French political party Rally National, formerly known as Front National, has not held a significant number of seats in the French National Assembly since 1986. This is because France changed their entire system of elections just to keep them out of the assembly. So they've remained a very popular party all this time. They do very well in EU elections, but they're blocked out of the assembly because of the winner-take-all style of elections. However, this time, in a huge turn of events, they got a large number of seats, vastly exceeding anything that anyone in the mainline media was predicting. They are now being called the big winner of this election. Now, the other big takeaway is that Macron lost his majority. So Macron has his party, Les Républicains En Marche, which ran in a coalition with some other establishment, so-called centrist parties. The coalition was called Ensemble, and they did not get a majority of the seats. So Macron lost his majority. So I've got the whiteboard that everybody loves so much. And in 1986, Front National, under the leadership of Jean-Marie Le Pen, got 9.7%. They were given 35 seats, which was 6.1% of the National Assembly. And the French establishment said, man, how can we make our National Assembly look more like America? They got it made. They got two establishment parties that are full of hacks and puppets for the lobbyists and the corporations. There's no populism, and they can count on outliers being blocked out because of the winner-take-all system. So he said, okay, well, we need a winner-take-all system to block out the outliers and keep the establishment in power. So in 1988, there was an early election under a new system in which you had 2 rounds of voting, and then the top 2 vote getters in the first round for each seat would then run against each other in a runoff. And so they knew that if you had a Front National candidate against, say, an establishment center-right or centrist or whatever, you'd have everybody to the left of the other candidate voting for him to stop Front National. So they went from proportional representation to American-style winner-take-all. And so in 1988, they got almost the exact same percentage, but instead of 35 seats, they got 1 seat. In 93, they got an even higher percentage, 12.6. They got 1 seat. 97, they got 14.9. They got 1 seat. And then they had 0 seats for a while. Now, flash forward to 2017, Jean-Marie Le Pen's daughter, Marine Le Pen, is running the show. And she's rebranded it from Front National to Rally National. And she has made the party a lot more moderate. It was a more hardline party in the 80s and 90s, and it is today. But that's how it goes, I guess. Now, Marine's daughter, Marion Le Pen, is actually more like Grandpa, and she's really hardcore. But at any rate, in 2017, they got 8 seats with 13.2%, which was still only 1.4% of all the seats. So this time, they got 18.7% of the vote in the first round, and they ended up with 89 seats, 15.4%. Now, some of the French media was, after the first round, they were predicting, well, they're going to do better than they have in the past. They might get 2 or 3 dozen seats. But no one was predicting anything like this. One of the factors is simply because the French center-right has collapsed. The main party is less Republicans. And now, less Republicans is in the EPP. Although compared to a lot of the parties in the EPP, they're actually more conservative. They're a lot more conservative than the CDU, the German Christian Democrats. They're not even close to as bad as them. But what they do is very similar to the Republicans in America. During the elections, they run as very conservative, but then they can't be counted on after they're elected. Once they're elected, then they're puppets for the lobbyists and everything. So here's how it played out. You have Ensemble, which is a coalition of Emmanuel Macron's party, Les Républicains En Marche, with some other parties who are basically hardcore establishment, pro-EU parties that bill themselves as, moderate centrists. So they got 25.8% of the vote in the first round, and they ended up with 42.5% of the seats. But this was a huge decline in what they used to have. There's 577 seats total. Next you have NUPA, which is a new thing. It's a coalition of left-wing parties. Now, one of those parties is the Socialist Party, which used to be the main French center-left party. It's declined big time. The main party in NUPA is this Mélenchon's party, if I'm pronouncing that right, which is, the name of his party means something like France Unbowed or France Unsubmissive. Now, he is often described as being like the French Bernie Sanders in the media. If you live in France, post a comment. I don't know if that's an especially good comparison. He might actually be more sincere than Bernie Sanders. I don't know much about him, but the real Bernie Sanders owns millions of dollars in property, drives a sports car, and has never worked an honest day in his life, never had a real job. He was actually kicked out of one of these Israeli kibbutzes when he was young because he was so lazy and wouldn't do any farm work. So NUPA is France Unbowed, along with the French Green Party, the old Socialist Party, which is declined incredibly, and the French Communist Party. And so they got 25.7% of the vote. They got 22.7% of the seats, which for the parties involved, it was a giant increase in seats. Now, I think the actual Socialist Party, they did really bad in the last election, but they're only getting a small portion of those seats. The lion's share is going to this Mélenchon's party, France Unsubmissive or France Unbowed. Then you have Rally National with 18.7% and 89 seats. A 81 seat increase over what they got last time. So this is what's so dramatic about this election, because normally Rally National would only get 1 or 0 seats after the second round, no matter how well they did in the first round. So then less Republicans, they're doing so bad now, they ran in a coalition with a few other little small parties, and they collectively got 11.3%. Huge decline. So you have a giant increase for the anti-establishment right and a huge decline for the establishment right. Now, I do want to point out that once again, over the years, less Republicans has been more conservative than some of the other alleged center-right parties in Europe. And over the years, I've talked to a lot of people from France who would say, well, Front National or Rally National, whatever the name was at the time, you know, they're my favorite party on the hot button cultural issues like immigration, but their brand of populism sounds too much like socialism. And they would say their economic policies were terrible, and they would tell me that they voted for less Republicans solely for economic reasons. And compared to some of the other nationalist, conservative, populist parties in Europe, Rally National, their economic policy probably is more to the left than their counterparts in other countries. Now, then you have another 18.6% going to a huge variety of other parties, some of which are different regional parties. But of these 48 seats, I think there's nearly 36 different parties. It's incredible. Now, a significant note here, of this 18.6%, 4.2% went to Reconquête, if I'm saying that right. That is a party of Eric Zemmour. He's the guy that was trying to run for president, is a right-wing candidate. This party ran essentially as a more hard-line right-wing party than Rally National. And in fact, Marine Le Pen's daughter, Marion Le Pen, who is more hard-line like her grandfather, she's actually an executive vice president of Reconquête right now, although I think she's much less involved in politics right now. She was a leader of Rally National, and she said that she wanted to take a break to have more children and focus on family issues. But at any rate, a party running as more to the right of Rally National got another 4.2%, but they got 0 seats. So to break this down another way, essentially the left got 33.2% of the vote. The establishment center, Macron, got 25.8%. The establishment right got 11.3%. The what I would call more authentic right, the anti-establishment right, got 25.2%. And then there's another 4.5% that went to a huge amount of different parties, some of which are different regional parties and whatnot. So once again, Rally National overcame a massive barrier. There is now no denying that they are one of the most popular parties in France. They've always been extremely popular in the EU elections. It's one of the main parties that France elects to the EU. However, under EU rules, France is not allowed to hold winner-take-all elections for the EU Parliament. They have to hold proportional representation elections. All right, thanks for watching this video. Click the like button, post a comment below, tell me what you think about all this, and please subscribe to my backup channels on BitChute and Odysee. Links in the description below. And click the subscribe button. New video every few days.